3, 2, 1. Boom! Dan with Mad Nasty Trapping coming at you again. How are you guys doing tonight? This is an instructional broadcast, guys. This one right here is part 2, the follow-up to the video I made 2 nights ago. Tonight is the second half of making Michigan legal bucket sets for conibear 220 traps. I went into it in the first video, so I'll keep it very brief in an intro on this one. Last video, I went into the measurements on how to measure out your trap buckets per the Michigan State legal way. Brief overview. You get out a tape measure, guys. You take your 5-gallon bucket. You must have 6 inches between the top of your bucket and your line. That line right there at 6 inches is where you place your trap. That is the maximum and minimum requirement for your location of your 220 trap placed inside your bucket to be legal in the state of Michigan. Your furthest most cut is on your 8-inch line. Your 8-inch line, your trap cannot be any further than that, but that allows for your spring expansion when your trap goes off. So there's the legalities of it. The second half that we're going to go over today is cutting out your lines in which to place your 220 conibear traps inside your buckets and making your lids. Alright, so I got a giant friggin' honking ass huge stack, well, not a huge stack, but I got a good size stack of buckets that I'll be working on tonight. And okay, here we go. The end result is your lids. I will go over each step here, guys, but just to show you what we got in the works here. Your lids, we want to do an equal cut. In the state of Michigan, it says that your opening of your bucket can only be 6 inches. Okay? And I'll go into that in a little more detail in a minute here. And I will go over tonight how to go and make your cuts in your buckets. Right? I want you guys to know how to make your cuts and how to go and make them look pretty. Not all jagged and janky and look like some backwoods hick went and did it wrong. But how to make your cuts nice and straight, how I do it, and that being the end result with obviously your lid covering half your bucket to make it your legal Michigan bucket set. Okay, so let's get started here. There's your brief overview, and if you go on YouTube channel Mad Nasty Trapping, you can see part 1 of this 2-part video series on making Michigan legal bucket sets. It's already posted up. Again, I did it about 2 days ago. So let's get rocking here, guys. Feel free to go and post in the comments down below. If you've got questions, I'll try to answer them. I might not answer them right away. Realize that I do see your comments down below here, and you know, if it pertains, and please, let's stay on topic, guys. If it pertains to the individual step at which I am working on, I will gladly answer it on the spot. If it is a general question about laws, regulations, or you know, how to modify these buckets, etc., I will answer those at the end of this broadcast. So let's get started here, guys. What you want to do is you want to go make your straight line cuts. Okay, straight line cuts down both sides. You want to go and cut down exactly to your 8-inch line. Again, maximum depth legally allowed in Michigan. All right. So the way I do it, and I'm going to see if I can get a better view here for you guys. That's gonna work better. Okay, maybe if I can get my phone to stay up. Okay, so on the side of your bucket, you got your 6, your 8, and typically what I do is I go and take a standard El Cheapo hacksaw, nothing special. This one I picked up on clearance, $8.24. You can't beat that. A brand new, good, sharp blade is essential on these buckets. And you want to be gentle with them because these buckets are not the most expensive, thickest things in the block. They're the cheapest things you could possibly find. And in doing so, you kind of need to be careful with these buckets because the last thing you want to do is split down below that 8-inch line, rendering it not legal in Michigan. Have to throw out the bucket. And even though it's just a little bit of cash that was invested into it, you know, you want to save each one that you get. You don't want to have any scrap or waste. You might bust a bucket or two in doing it, but for the bulk majority of them, you just want to take your time, be gentle with the saw. Don't go hacksawing crazy and get them done. When I do them, on the side of the bucket, there's where the handle attaches right here. There's kind of a notch right there. I go just a hair beyond the notch on each side, and I find that that allows you enough room that when you slide in your 220 conibear trap, that allows you enough room to actually go and twist it into the bucket, but still retaining enough closure so that your trap is not reachable or exposable from the outside by the raccoon that you're trying to catch. So what I typically do is I try to keep my saw fairly level with the bucket, okay? I find it much tougher, especially once you start cutting into the bucket, that once you get, you know, a nice sharp angle like that, once you get buried all the way down, once you get buried down to your lip of the bucket and you're on an angle, you're really bending, twisting, you're not going to get your straight lines you're going for. So in order to do it and do it right, I tend to keep that blade as flat as I can on that bucket and run it to the 8-inch line, guys. Once you get down to that 8-inch line, you want to slow down until you hit it. And I've gone and just barely marked that 8-inch line with a straight line cut. You're going to come back on your other side. You're going to go again just a hair below your little notch out right here. Okay? You're going to go just a hair below there. Keep your saw blade fairly level on it. And that allows you nice straight line cuts, guys. Taking it all the way down to the 8-inch line. Now, once you get down to that 8-inch line, I tend to give it a little fold crease upwards on the line. You don't have to kick it all the way over, but just so it raises it up off the bucket. Come back through with your saw. Another little thing I found out, guys, is where your opening is on the top of the bucket where you just cut. Yeah, it's flimsy, it'll move around. If you try to cut and you're flexing on the bucket, you're going to rip and tear it. I grab both sides of that cut, hold it steady in place as best as possible here, guys. Hold it steady in place. Again, going parallel with the bucket, and follow your line. That cuts out your notch out of the bucket right there. That part gets discarded. Now you got your perfect cuts, and you still have your measurement marks on the outside. So if there's any discrepancies when you're out in the woods, DNR, conservation officer, comes up to you and they even so much as question about the distance in your notches, it's a reassurance to the DNR or conservation officer when you have your markings on the bucket. No, it is not mandatory legal, you know, to have those on there. It is not a requirement to have your measurements on the bucket. But it does show the DNR or the conservation officer that you did, in fact, measure it. They may double check you if they really want to be, you know, technical about it. But at least you know where to set your traps at the 6-inch mark. You know you're legal on your 8-inch depth. Okay? So that is basically that as far as the bucket goes. When it comes down to it, on your final step on the buckets, what I tend to do is on the bottom of the buckets, you want to place some holes, okay, on the bottom of your buckets so that scent can be dispersed behind the bucket. You don't want holes big enough where the animal can reach and grab into it, obviously, but just punch some minor holes in the bottom side so that you can get that scent come out the back side of the bucket. The animals know enough that they have to work around the bucket to the opposite side and then enter it, okay? Another thing that I brought up last time before I get into cutting these lids is, in the past, guys, I've had a lot of problems with finding lids, actual plastic lids for these buckets. You guys will have the same problem, I'm pretty sure of it, unless you find a store that has a huge stockpile of them. But the lids become scarce very, very, very quickly. In Michigan, according to the laws, it says you must have a 6-inch opening, 6-inch opening max on your bucket sets. So if this is a 12-inch bucket, I measure off 6 inches and mark it. 6 inches open, 6 inches closure on a 12-inch opening, leaving a 6-inch opening for the animal to enter into the bucket. Okay? Michigan does not stipulate how you must cover this bucket. When I was in shortage and I didn't have any lids, I went and used duct tape to cover the opening. Okay? Now, this is legal. Though I did get a warning from the conservation officer last year that this, though it is legal, will pose a problem if the DNR or conservation officer wants to get technical with it, because there's flex to it. So therefore, a bigger animal than 6 inches, which is why they build these this way, is to go and reduce the amount of non-target species catch. Okay? When this bucket can flex and move up, they say that that right there constitutes less than 6 inches, even though it's covered, could be construed as not the proper measurements on the bucket. Though, again, guys, it does not tell you specifically what to cover your lid with. They came back, I said, hey, lids are near impossible to find right now, and they said, hey, you know what, some guys cover it with cardboard. You know, they duct tape it, put a half circle of cardboard on there, and then duct tape over the cardboard so that it doesn't flex up. Some of them use trapping wire, or run trapping wire on the back side of the tape, and roll the tape over that trapping wire just to make it sturdy so that it, doesn't easily maneuver up. These are all acceptable methods if you guys can't find the lids. Ideally, the lids are the way to go, and, if you can find a stockpile of lids, I look for the lids year-round. If I see 2 of them on the shelf, I buy 2 of them. If I see 15 on the shelf, I buy all 15 of them. You can never have enough of the lids, and obviously cutting them in half, 1 lid is good enough to make 2 bucket sets. So keep that in mind, guys. If you got 6 buckets that you're building, you only need 3 lids cut in half. So that's that. Let me grab a lid here. I'll show you the demo on how to get these lids done, guys. And we got a couple of comments coming in here real quick. I'm going to blow through them here. Okay, boom, 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 boom. Eric says, making these for otter. I'm in a 4 otter county in Ohio, and I'm looking to trap them this year if I can find the property to do so. As far as what your target species is for these buckets, you got to refer to your state laws. Okay, guys? These buckets may not be the same legal limits and measurements in every state across the board, and I can almost assure you that it's not. All right? This is in particular the measurements and laws pertaining to Michigan. As far as what species you are legally allowed to catch inside these buckets, again, you have to refer to your state game laws on that. I build these buckets for land sets. I build them primarily for raccoon and for possum, okay? I will be making smaller sets for conibear 110s for muskrat and mink boxes, okay? And I will demo that as soon as I can get my hands on a whole bunch of plastic newspaper boxes. I will demo how to go and do the proper measurements, cuts, and build those as well, okay? But Eric, good question, buddy. Keep them coming. Michael Seabolt says, what is the best lure for the bucket set? You know, that is on a per zone basis. What works for you might not work for me, and vice versa. What I use in my traps is, I can vary it, you know. If I see that there's animals that are working the front of my set, but they're just not enticed enough to go into the bucket and grab the bait at the back, I'll tend to go and put whatever bait I need to in the back, and then I will go put a scent attractant or a handful of dry dog food right at the entrance, kind of just give it a throw into the bucket, so there's like a trail I got to go into the bucket to get caught. Typically the bait that I use in the back of the bucket, it can really be anything. I've used baby food jars with chicken, beef, whatever, baby food, Gerber little jars, and just kind of set that in the back of the buckets. I kind of tended to start steering away from that, because anything that's not attached to the back of the bucket, guys, anything that you do not attach to the hole on the back of your bucket on the inside, obviously, that animal will reach in. It will try to first reach in and grab it. You really want them to work this set hard. If they can reach in and grab whatever bait you have at the back and pull it out of the bucket, you're going to miss a whole lot of catches, and you're also going to get a whole lot of foot catches in it. Now, foot catches aren't a problem. Just realize that, you know, at that point, it's basically a foothold trap. Not what the trap's designed for, though it will hold the animals in place. But your whole intent is you want, with the depth of the bucket, and you can get deeper buckets too, and by all means do so, your notches in Michigan must still stay the same. And ideally, I'd like to find a bucket that's maybe another foot deeper, so they really have to go into the bucket all the way in order to get that bait all the way at the back. But for the bulk majority of them, if you do it and do it right, and you've got your bucket closed off, you know, your coon's going to have a 6, maybe an 8-inch reach. You know, it's going to be really struggling to reach the back of that bucket. And chances are good that even if they're reaching into the back of the bucket, they're still going to have to get their head inside the opening, which will get them behind the neck, or, you know, up around the neck and behind the head catch, which is ideally what you're looking for anyway. So even if they grab, it's okay. But if they have a loose bait in the inside that they're trying to grab out, you know, it's just, in my opinion, better off if you can take your bait of whatever type you choose and attach it to the inside of the bucket at the back through one of your holes. So what I use is I go to the dollar store and I pick up cans of sardines from the dollar store. You know, just your $1 can of sardines. That's what I go and I put in the back of it. When you're running sardines as bait, you're going to get a whole lot of possum out of the deal. And these are kill traps. You realize that when you whack a critter, you want to make the best of it, okay? So maybe there's other baits out there that are more coon specific or more target animal specific for that. But, you know, I'm not opposed to trapping a few dozen possum. I'm not opposed to doing it. You know, obviously it's not my target. My target's coon. But if I get a few dozen possum in the mix, hey, I don't care. I'll skin those down like any other critter. But the last thing you want to do is be whacking and stacking possums and just hucking them into the woods. In my opinion, it's not the right thing to do. We want to treat these animals with respect, realizing that this is a kill trap. If you're not willing to bring those possums, your incidental catch possums, back to skin them out and get them back into the fur market to treat them with the respect they deserve, you should probably find another more coon specific bait to use in these traps. I hope that answers your question there, Michael. Kevin says, never used a bucket set. I have had a lot of luck on these bucket sets, buddy. At least here in Michigan, any live restraining trap, whether it be a foothold, a dog-proof trap, you know, a snare, whatever it might be, any live restraining trap in Michigan must be checked every 24 hours, okay? What's nice about these bucket sets being that they are a kill trap, in Michigan, the law does not differentiate how much time you can have a kill trap set out, and they don't have a set legal time in which you have to check them. So, providing, say, for instance, the weather is right and it's below freezing, you know it's not going to get a thaw or anything like that. If you run these bucket sets as a secondary to your footholds, your DPs, and your snares, okay? If you run these as a secondary, you can run a line of 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 of these bucket sets, however many you can afford to go out and check. In that line, there's no stipulation on how often you must check it. So you can realistically put these out there and then check these every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or check them every Saturday, providing there's not a warm-up where your fur is going to go green and such. So you can really work these into the set to being a really beneficial set for you that you don't have to check on a daily basis, that will help increase your catch counts, and it really pays off. I mean, a lot of guys knock on the bucket sets, you know, being that it's a kill trap, it's hard to be selective on what you get inside these kill traps, you know. Obviously, your non-target species are going to get nailed in these things. You're going to nail the neighbor's cat. You're going to nail a bunch of possums. You know, you might get a turtle or a squirrel. Who the hell knows? It's a kill trap. It's going to happen. These have a higher likelihood of incidental catches, and being that it is a kill trap, you know, that could perchance turn into a hassle. So, but they do have their place. They are a very, very effective set. I was pulling a lot of coons off these sets. You can go onto YouTube channel Mad Nasty Trapping. Check out my live from the trap line videos from last season, and you will see these bucket sets in action. You can see how successful I was on these. Another reason why I plan to have another 30 to 50 buckets this year on my trap line to increase my catch count. So hopefully that answers your question there, buddy, on never using the bucket sets before. Kevin says, I know it would depend on your using as bait, but what do you use to hold your bait in? Good question. Okay, I will go grab a bucket and I'll show you. Okay, here's a bucket from last season. I haven't gotten around to cleaning them out yet. Inside the bucket, you guys can see the sardine can at the back. Alright guys, see that sardine can there at the back? The sardine can at the top has a pop tab on the top of it. I run a piece of trapping wire through the back hole. See how you get the holes down here? I run the trapping wire through the back hole, you know, around the tab to the back hole, and then separate your wires out like a cotter pin. And that holds it in there just fine. They ain't going to pull that through because they ain't going to get far enough past that 220 conibear to actually get in there and get that bait and pull it out. So, yeah, you just take your wire, you kind of make a cotter pin looking deal out of it, you run it through the tab on your can of sardines, run your wires through the hole, split them open like a cotter pin, and let them hang in the back. That chrome can will give a nice visual attractant. That's not, Jesus, these things friggin' stink. Good Lord. They've been sitting out here since last season with sardines in them. Nasty. Anyways, but yeah, that chrome can in there will give a good visual attractant. For whatever reason, raccoons like to grab shiny things. They're like ADHD, ADD critters of the woods. They're a bit shiny and ooh, ah, they'll grab at it. So I've had them where there's been no sardines in it, an empty freaking can that's been rained on. It doesn't even smell anymore, but they see the shine in there, they'll grab at it. So that's the way I do it. Good question. Well, let me get this back outside real quick. I'll be right back because this is disgusting. Okay, I'm going to rip through a couple more of these questions real quick here, guys. And then I'm going to get on to making these lids. Then I'm going to wrap up here and answer any more questions you guys have. But I do want to get the instructional portion of it done for everybody that's watching on how to build these, so you don't have to scan through the video. But I'll do a quick run through here and answer these questions quickly. Marshall says sardines are cheaper at Walmart, 70 cents a can. That's pretty damn cheap, man. I've been buying them at the dollar store for $1 a piece. I'm going to have to look that up. Thanks for the tip. Marshall says sardines, Walmart's 70 cents a can. That's cheap bait. And the best thing about these bucket sets is if they don't get to the bait, this bait can be used over and over and over and over and over again until either it rots or what you're going to have a lot of times, especially with sardines, guys, you're going to get a lot of mice. Mice will eventually eat those sardines gone. But I tend to be able to get, you know, I've gotten, you know, a half dozen to a dozen critter catch off of one can of sardines. That's a pretty good turnout on bait. I mean, you guys got to admit that you guys that buy baits and lures and your hawbakers and your kishels and, you know, your Taylor's baits and, you know, all these different, and Cavins and all these other bait and lure manufacturers. These other baits are expensive. And when you're going for coon, you know, they're not pulling a premium on hides and furs. So the cheaper the bait you can get, at least on the low dollar critters in the fur market, the better off you are. And the more you can reuse a bait, that's even better. So if I can get a half a dozen to 12, you know, half a dozen to a dozen coon on one can of sardines that cost me 70 cents to $1, that, my friends, is efficient cost savings in bait usage. So there you go. There's another tip from the Mad Nasty. Kevin says in West Virginia, all traps and snares must be checked every 24 hours. So I'd be good then. Yep. Again, I can't stress it enough, guys. I live in Michigan. I follow Michigan game laws as closely as I possibly can. Being that I'm in the spotlight on social media and I have a very big presence out on the state land in which I trap, I don't have access to large expanses of private property. I'm on state land a lot, nightly. You guys know this. But that puts me in the spotlight under the DNR. And by no way, shape, or form should you be breaking any laws, even though you think it might be ridiculous or stupid. Laws are still laws, and they must be followed until they are legally changed and no longer a law. It's play by the books, guys, even on your private properties. Set a good example for the other trappers and bring up-and-comers into it right. Now, I've been known to go and skate the line. I like playing within the gray areas, but make sure you're totally legal. But, yes, here in Michigan, and again, Michigan specifically, your live restraining type traps must be checked every 24 hours. A kill trap does not have to be checked every 24 hours. Does not stipulate how often they must be checked, though they recommend, I believe, in fact check me, but they recommend a 24-hour, or they recommend a 48-hour maximum on kill traps. They recommend it, but there's no set in stone on your kill traps here in Michigan. Okay, so let's get on to the lids here, guys. And Marshall, I do see your comment there, but I need to get back onto this build. Now we'll go back to that in just a few minutes here, once I wrap up the build here, guys. Okay, when it comes to your, oh, friggin' juice, gross. All right, when it comes to your lids in Michigan, your lids must have no more and no less than a 6-inch. Okay, so I've already cut these lids right here, guys. These lids right here, as you can see, are right on the money, 6 inches. All right. Now, what you want to do is when you get them cut, you want to go and take your good old marker out, and you're going to want to go like this to there, arrow to arrow, and then go 6 inches. That way, there's no question by your DNR conservation officer that you did in fact measure these. And if they choose to go and measure you, hey, more power to them, but at least they know that you didn't just go and guess. Okay, so these are your 6-inch openings. Pretty basic and simple, guys. You might as well overdo it than underdo it, and you're going to be grateful you did when that conservation officer shows up and you can say, you know what, I'm all legal. And they're going to look at you and go, damn, you went way above and beyond on this one. Nice job. That's better than, let me bust out the tape measure and make sure your cuts are right. You know, you always want to, if you can, go above and beyond to make sure you're within the legal guidelines and prove and show that you are visually within those guidelines. You're good to go. All right, guys? Now, lids. What I tend to do here, guys, is I rip out my tape measure. All right? And I go, and these lids have lines on them. These ones in particular have lines on them. So if you go half and half, the lines are directly across from each other, and it's got a nice center point right there. Drawing a straight line, you can go in 3 points to make your straightest line possible. Okay, I'm all about clean. I like making my stuff look professional, guys. You know, yeah, you can hack and whack, chop, and build these things however the hell you want. I mean, you can take out a gaudy-ass pocket knife and start chiseling away at shit. But, sorry, guys, I'm a little flashier than that. I like to show off when I do my shit. So, you go and you take your tape measure and you run your line all the way across your bucket lid. Okay. Now that you got your line all the way across, just like on your other buckets, these lids, they're flimsy and flexible. If you were to go and cut straight up and down, you're going to have a heck of a time making sure that A, number one, your lines are going to continue to stay straight, and B, number two, you're going to have issues with cracking and splitting your lids. You don't want to do that. So when I go ahead and do it, and I'm going to try to get it on the best image I can for you guys, is keeping your blade almost parallel with the bucket. You're going to go and run your cuts straight down your line. And what I tend to do is get it to the halfway point, spin it, then you're going to come back on your other side, keeping it almost parallel. Don't cut your leg off in the process. But keeping it parallel with the line there, almost totally flat. You're going to continue to run it, run it, run it. Grab your cut opening, support it as best you can so it doesn't flex on you, and continue to cut through your lids. Okay, now you got your lids cut in half. Beautiful, right? Look at that straight lines, man. Oh, it's all about straight lines. Then you come back through and you take your little marker here and you go draw your little arrows on there and you go 6-inch, and that one's done. Then you go and you take this side of the bucket right here, the lid, and you draw your line and you draw your little arrows that show from there to there is 6 inches, and you're done. Okay, so that right there is your cutting of your notches, 8 inches, both sides on your buckets, marked at 6 inches for your trap placement inside the notch, and little leeway for spring expansion. 8 inches right there, marked off both sides of your bucket with your lid with a 6-inch drawn on it. 12-inch opening on your bucket, half and half of 12 inches is 6 inches. So therefore, you're 6 inches covered and 6 inches open. That right there is your bucket sets, guys. Make sure that you take your knife, a drill, or whatever you've got. Find locations in the back, and I like to put them through these, in between these circles, so that as you're cutting your holes, it doesn't split your plastic. If you have these holes in the bottom of your buckets, or these circles in the bottom of your buckets, take advantage of that and keep your holes small enough within there so this extra ring on your circles here helps reinforce those openings. There's your Michigan Legal bucket set, guys. Build yourself 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 200, 400, 600 of these things, man. As many 220 conibear traps as you can stuff into one each of these buckets. Run yourself a mega line of them and follow your game laws. Check them as needed per your state's laws and get your catch count up. This is a very effective trap. You'll catch a lot in it, and I think you guys will all really see the benefits of these. Okay, so I'm going to come back on here, see if I've got any other last questions on here. I see a couple people still watching. I'm about ready to wrap this up because I want to keep some of my videos shorter, especially instructional ones shorter, right and to the point. Okay. Marshall, I did tell you I'd come back to your comment on here. Marshall says those cheap sardines smell a little funky, and it's a stronger smell that draws the mink, muskrat, and coons, and even coyotes in pretty fast. Yeah, I have realized that, you know, on sardine as baits, some brands are better than other brands. The ones that I have found the most abundant are And these work. These work. Beach Cliff. Sponsor me. Mad Nasty Trapping. Beach Cliff Sardines Catch Coons. Sponsor this guy. Anyway, these sardines, I use the ones, I try to find the ones that are in water. They come in water, they come in oil, and they come in mustard sauce, and maybe a couple other ways. I've seen videos where guys that use them in mustard sauce works. But my preference, above all else, is if I can find sardines in water, I want the real deal. No added in junk. Now, the oil ones, I have had success, but for whatever reason, I have had my most success on any brand of sardine that is in water. Okay? Now, there is another brand out there. I don't have any of them, I don't think. Golly, I got some baits in here, right, guys? Yeah, I mean, I got, you know, I can throw a can of chunk tuna in there. Obviously, I don't throw the whole can in there. I just kind of pop the top and give it a chuck and just have a whole mess of gross in the back of that bucket. That works too. You know, you can get cans of tuna, dollar store. You know, Beach Nut Classics. Chicken, baby food. Works. Steak, baby food. Works. Beef, baby food. Works. Don't throw the whole jar in there, guys. Pop the top and give it a whoosh. And just chuck it into the back of the bucket. So they have to work it to get it all out of there so you don't get any foot catches and little grabbers that pull them out. These work. Yeah, you can throw a handful of marshmallows in the back of there too. That works for coons. But there's a, I don't know the brand name of it. But there's a sardine can, guys, that, it's kind of like an oval shaped can. And it's a gold can, oval shaped. It's available at most dollar stores. And for whatever reason, the odor that comes out of that can versus these beach cliff, whatever the hell those ones are, is the odor that comes out of there is completely different. It's a whole lot more, for lack of better terms, fresh smelling, and it's a whole lot stronger scent in the oval can, whatever brand that is, versus those rectangular chrome cans. Marshall comes in and says 65-cent tuna and egg cat food works good too. I think for basically coons, anything that has a fish smell to it will attract them, and any real fish meat will get them inside that bucket. I think that's pretty much a given. Whether it be a dry pellet form cat food that includes seafood in it, or, you know, wet cat food that includes fish, you know what I mean? It's basically anything that has a fish meat base to it is going to get your coons and possums into that bucket. So I think that's about it for right now, guys. Any other last questions on here? Get them in real quick here as I plug down my channels, and I'll answer them for you. Yes, marshmallows work well. Whenever I'm using DP traps, you know, dog-proof traps, of which I have many, you know, whenever I'm using my DP traps right here, guys, you know, obviously we can talk about all kinds of different stuff, but on my DPs, I go and I use dry dog food or dry cat food, and then I mix it in with marshmallows, and then I tend to go and put some kind of other attractant right on top in that notch there at the top. I've used peanut butter. I've used different lure attractants and stuff like that. I've used fish oil, a little swatch of it on a Q-tip right at the top of that, just as a little scent attractant. You know, there's a lot of different things you guys can try. And again, I don't proclaim to be the greatest trapper on the block, though I am striving to be so. But that just tends to be what that just tends to be what I'm using on my own sets that works for me, guys. Tom Baker comes in and says, Z-traps all day. No thanks. I'll stick to my Dukes. Yes. Love my Dukes. I don't know. I hear that the Z-traps are awesome because they got a push-pull trigger and that the Dukes only have a pull trigger. But that is for another video. This right here, Terrain Tagart, hit me up. Hit me up on Messenger as soon as this broadcast is done. I'd like to chat with you a little bit more. Hit me up on the Facebook Messenger as soon as I end this. But this right here, guys, has been the two-part instructional on how to build your Michigan legal bucket sets. I hope you all have enjoyed it. If you've got any questions or I didn't get into specifics well enough for you, go ahead, post comments below this video, and I will answer each and every one of them for you. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I am Dan Edwards of Mad Nasty Trapping. You can get me on, most importantly, YouTube channel, Mad Nasty Trapping. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, and follow up on the 170 plus videos that you guys haven't seen before next season. You can get a hold of me on Facebook, Dan Edwards, Facebook Messenger, Dan Edwards. You can get a hold of me on Instagram, Mad Nasty Trapping, Twitter, Mad Nasty Trapping, and that Snapchat, Mad Nasty Trapping. It's been a pleasure, my friends. Thanks for tuning in. I hope I've helped you to go and make some new sets that will increase some catch on your line this year. Hopefully I've gone into detail enough to make sure that you guys stay within the legal parameters. Check your local state laws. Stick within them. Set a good example. Bring the youth out into the woods. And have them help you go and do these projects because it's fun, guys. I'm Dan of Mad Nasty Trapping. I appreciate each and every one of you. I love you all. And you will see me sooner than you think.